funny. I'd press the live button and I'm like, shit, I didn't record.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the current hour. Is this our eighth one, Lawrence?
It's 8, yeah.
Number eight. It's a special
Number
number,
8.
the number eight. Ah, how are you
Okay.
today, my friend?
Oh, I'm good with the whole spectrum of good. The whole
Yeah.
spectrum that comes with good.
Yes, I was talking about
Yeah.
that yesterday with someone about the spectrum of good, where when someone asks you, how are you? And it's just so natural to be like, I'm good. I'm good. And in the
Yeah.
past, I would have said I'm good as a way to avoid having to talk about how I really am. But now I catch myself saying I'm good, and I'm not lying, but it includes, like you said, the full spectrum of good is
Right.
really what I mean by I'm good is there's some stuff moving and there's some stuff going on, and I'm a bit confused over here, and I'm a bit excited over here, and I'm a bit tired over here, but I'm grounded in here, so I'm good.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. I took an inventory of everything that was going on in my life and compressed it into that word, but instead of not as a shield, but as a practice of
Honesty.
acceptance. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And just a resolution, a resolve just to remain good in the face of potentially not good sorts of
That's
things.
that's really what the Gene Keys is all about, isn't it? Allowing us to find that sense of good and that sense of core stability, no matter what is transpiring in our lives, and to be able to anchor into that goodness that is at the core of us.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think core stability is like probably one of the most profound kind of attunements or
Yeah.
gifts I've received from the Gene Keys
Hmm.
as like a framework or as
Hmm.
a contemplative tool, especially in my profile
Yeah.
and the ways it's like mirrored.
Hmm.
I Yeah, it's like a really powerful tool for me to come back to when I feel outside the spectrum of good.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it playing such a pivotal role in anyone's journey who I get the privilege of journeying with, especially coming
Hmm.
into, especially when you go into the Venus sequence. I mean, like collectively, we've got this real entering the Venus sequence energy happening right now with the sage kind of getting underway this week as we all enter the Venus stream after this month of the in-between, this month of a gap between activation and Venus. And I feel like the importance of that gap is all about core stability. It's about
Hmm.
just allowing that some time to get its roots to run a little deeper, because the depth of our core stability is the depth that we can access in our Venus sequence. Do you feel that that runs true for you in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I went all the backwards ways. Like everything you probably shouldn't have done as you like approach wisdom streams or like the gene keys. I did that. That's my way. I
It's because
line
you're the
three'd it.
rebel.
It's so hard.
You're the
Yeah.
fool.
Like I started the gene keys basically, and I just like dove into the seven sacred seals. So I was
Hmm.
like really into Venus. I was like, what I needed at that time. But then like when I consider it in like retrospect or in hindsight, I see how much value would have came or is potentially could come from just like really connecting to that place in your profile, the core
Hmm.
stability before embarking on a bunch of emotional introspection and contemplation, you know, which
Yeah.
it seems like so harmless. It's just like this little thing through the core of the profile, but like I don't know if anything will just like rock you open in so many different avenues, different ways. And it
Mm.
really, mm, yeah, it's like the prime door
Mm,
or my relationship to the gene keys is like through the Venus sequence.
mm,
It's like the portal that
mm,
shatters or prisms everything open. So
mm,
I, yeah, I definitely, when I feel off kilter, I connect to those cities, majesty and presence, which are
mm,
in my activation sequence core stability. But then it's mirrored throughout the sequences.
mm.
So it would be the SQ in the core,
Yeah.
and then the brand in the,
Brand and vocation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, these different points of the stability of our physical bodies between radiance and purpose, the stability in our
mhm.
emotional body between EQ and SQ, and the stability in our mental body between the brand and the vocation, and just those different forms of challenge that we come up against as well. Like the challenge between our IQ and our EQ that leads us to the core stability, that we find, sorry, our challenge between our attraction and our IQ that leads us to the breakthrough between our IQ and our EQ so that we can form that core stability. It's like, there's just nothing. I often say, like, whenever I talk about core stability, I'm like, just even that statement, core stability, it doesn't sound very exciting. It doesn't sound very sexy. But it is the most delicious thing that you can cultivate as a human. And I think that core stability makes a person deeply attractive as well. Like this, I feel like it's one of those pieces, it's like, oh, maybe this is the whole point. Like to bring us into more of that stability inside of us so that life can take us on the adventure.
Mm. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think about like Elijah's been doing the individuation, right?
Hmm.
Like the do the central column of the profile,
Hmm.
which I think is really the higher purpose of the profile in many
Hmm.
ways. And
Hmm.
then you have Richard talking about the steady state that he's writing about in the Sage,
Yeah.
which I find is like a something similar to what we would call core stability. And I
Mm.
think the place once you hit the equilibrium point of core stability, you have a chance at absorption or
Mm.
like a torus
Hmm.
toroidal field,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then you can actually start experiencing new stories
Yeah.
in many ways. So
So cool.
I just connected the dots today. Uh, I was listening to
Oh, sorry.
Stevie. Is it Stevie? I don't know.
Yes, my mum has just arrived. She came through the gate
Okay.
and he's very excited to see. But I'll put myself on
Uh,
mute for a bit while you share.
No, 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 it's fine. I like the color of the sounds. Um, that like Venus creates like a 5 point pattern, right? Through its orbit in the sky and just like connected it to the actual Venus stream where it begins in the attractor field. So it's like the attractor, IQ, EQ, SQ, core. Not including the sphere of Dharma, but like it's like that point from the genius sequence or activation sequence, and then the Venus stream begins. And it's also like a 5 point pattern versus the six. I mean, like the six is whatever, but like the six is like the full Venus, but I would say like it like really begins in that attraction sphere. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like the purpose is kind of the prep work of okay, let's take what we've already touched into and now shift the energy for you to look through the lens of your relationships And then it's
Hmm.
like, and let's go with the attraction sphere, where it calls us into this, oh, just this completely fresh way of viewing our relationships, but viewing our role in relationships. This is just what
Hmm.
I love about the Venus. And at the moment, my year-long group that I run, we're ahead of the sage. So we've just entered the IQ sphere. So we're about 6 weeks, or eight
Okay.
weeks ahead of the
Yeah.
sage. Sorry if you can hear Kevin now barking in the background, but
I can't.
it is what it
So.
is. um, is that I just love the journey of witnessing other souls coming into the Venus for the first time, which a lot of them, this is their first time in the Venus, and just
Okay.
watching that moment where the mind opens in a way where they go, I have never, I've never considered my life quite through this lens before.
Hmm.
Maybe adjacent, maybe like, little ways that we've considered relationships and ways that we've considered dharma and karma and these kinds of things. But you come into the attraction sphere and it challenges you to gaze upon life through a philosophy that you just don't find anywhere else. And certainly you're not taught in this way. We're really taught in this world of drama, not of Dharma. We're taught, to stay in those realms of this person pissed me off, and so I feel this way about that person, or that person did that, and so I feel this way. And we're raised in the drama. And I feel that when we come into the attraction sphere, how it asks us to take this accountability for
Hmm.
our role, how it asks us to clean the mirror of our attractor field so we can see more clearly into ourselves, where it asks us, can we gaze beyond blame and allow our most difficult relationships and then our most delicious relationships to become a mirror into a deeper part of our wound? And that process of witnessing someone just opening up to the Venus stream in that way,
Hmm.
it's peak for me.
It's peak. I love the word
I
peak
love
right
it.
now.
Yeah, me too.
I've been throwing it in. I've been like, peak. That was peak. I don't know if you. I'll talk to you about that later.
Okay.
Love Instagram thing. Uh, no, I'd agree. I think it's like the activation sequence is uh it's a moment. I actually like in my travels, I find myself gravitating towards the activation sequence more and more. Like uh as like foundational, but like to what am I trying to say? Uh it's like easy for people to get down with.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, like these
absolutely.
are my prime gifts. These are my
Yeah,
genius, you know?
yeah,
But
yeah.
then there always comes like a point in someone's evolution, well, or like past that, it's like, okay, like I have a somewhat sense of like who I am and
Hmm.
what my genius kind of looks like. But then it's
Hmm.
like, why am I like, how does this, how is this genius in like relationship to
Yeah.
everything else in my life, you know? And that's like
Yes.
where the Dharma, spirit of Dharma, like
Hmm.
begins, where it's like, oh, I
Hmm.
connect to my purpose, but like, how is this teaching, this soul teaching, am I
Hmm.
learning? How is it like rippling out into my life?
Yeah.
And it's like also like, why am I attracting all these certain situations, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And like, I'm just coursing through the Venus dream here. It's like how like the epiphany, the archetypal epiphany dawns. It's like, oh, it's like you begin to question. It's like, why am I attracting these certain relationships or this certain pattern over and over and over again, you know? And then really at that trigger point of like the sphere of IQ, you have the
Hmm.
mental.
Mm.
unlock or the potential for like the quick unlock because you see it as like this mental framework that you've carried from
Yes.
forever, however long ago,
Mm-hmm.
that might be quite ancestral at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking, I bring it up like that because it's like I was just talking to a friend recently about it. It's like how I like a mental image of epiphany, and it's like your head is like the top of your head is like the surface of the ground, and like the wisdom is the water dripping down, and it's like your head will be wet, like when you have the like your head's wet instantly,
Mm.
and it's like you may recognize the truth in the transmission of like that something is harmful or destructive or you've been opinionated or evading or avoiding something, and you might realize that, but it takes time for that like water and that juice to like get down to your emotional body where it has to percolate and unwind and go through like all the patterns
Mm.
itself. And then it takes even longer for that to kind of hit the actual like cellular level where like your cells are
Mm.
and your like actual DNA
Mm.
starts to shift into and you become like a different person
Mm.
entirely. So that's kind of what I mean
Mm.
is like I find myself going back because if we look at the sequences, it's like the activation sequence is a primary like physical, it like maps to the physical body. The Venus to the astral or emotional body, and then the prosperity is like of like the higher mind or uh service
Mm.
um and prosperity. But ultimately, I think as you contemplate your profile over the years, you find yourself back at that door between the emotional and the physical, you know?
Mm.
So it's like you,
Always.
yeah.
Yeah, like I guess that holographic nature of it all, but it's always bringing itself back to the beginning in a way. Like it's always kind of as
Hmm.
that water hits upon the head, as it makes its way down, it inevitably brings you back into the activation again as that grounds back in, which then takes you back into the Venus, which then brings you back in here. It's just that the ebb and the flow of the water and the the beauty of what the gene keys is really doing in us, I feel, from that process of, like you said, like that water on the head and how it takes its time, is we are surrendering to that fact that it takes time,
Hmm.
and my latest YouTube video, which I haven't posted yet because I still have to edit it, but I did a YouTube video on the 7 or 8, I can't remember how many there were, the 8 ways that people block themselves from transforming with their gene keys.
All
And
right, lay them
like
out.
a common
I
thread
want to know.
through a common thread through there was like wanting it to be done yesterday, you know,
Yeah.
approaching it with quick fix energy, approaching it with fixing energy at all. And
Hmm.
we're so schooled in a world that says, okay, if you're going to, like, when you read a book, you read the whole thing and then you know it all and then you move on to the next thing. And that process of the water making its way into your cells, the most beautiful thing about the gene keys is it teaches us the process of that. And it actually helps us to have a bridge, like the gifts and the cities create this bridge for us of a trust in where it's taking us and letting that process happen. But that was just a common thread that I felt that every point that I made in the video was like, and this comes back to that.
Hmm.
It comes back to the patience. It comes back to the are we willing to sit with that? And the thing that blocks us from sitting with that process is our fear of the shadow. Because if we're afraid of the shadow, we want to fix it and we want it to be done quickly, or we enter into the underworld, but we do it like this. Like, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to run in there, get what I need, and run back out.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
inevitably loops us back around to the same point again and again and again. It's like that relationship with our Dharma and our karma. Only when we take accountability for our Dharma and ownership for our karma. Like, I really feel that the Dharma is gene key 22 and the karma is gene key 47. Like, ah, taking accountability for what life is bringing my way so I can take ownership for the personal and the impersonal karma. Like you said, some of this is impersonal karma, these loops that are very deeply bound in ancestral patterns, yet we are still being invited to take ownership of them so that we can play that piece. But we're so afraid that we're not going to reach our purpose that we run around on the outside trying to find our purpose when, like, that letting go of the fear that I won't be able to access my purpose allows us to find the purpose in the moment that we're in, of actually disentangling from these loops, which we disentangle, I believe, through accountability and ownership.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I I mean it's a tricky point in the any spiritual teaching to define that like suffering is grace, but
Mhm.
that's what the Venus sequence ultimately teaches us, you know?
Yes.
And that's like something you can't say to somebody who is suffering, you know? Uh, that is like, but like the greatest mirror that like the Venus sequence is like does do is like show you like what is like your own personal, like what, where you are personally entering in the mechanical nature of your suffering, you know? Once it's
Mm.
just, and then it basically walks you back to the point of ancestral or impersonal like things that have been carried forward that you are healing on behalf of the whole, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I haven't thought about that. Like 22 is a Dharma, 47 is karma. I, I see that mirror. Uh, I can see that. Um,
Because how we dishonor our Dharma and then we become oppressed by our karma.
I guess we have to, I mean, like, how do you define either? It's just
Dharma
like,
and karma.
yeah,
I would
how would you?
define I would define Dharma as destiny. I would define Dharma as what life brings your way. And I love to define Dharma through the lens of drama. And so drama is when we get caught in the superficial layers of our Dharma. When we're in resistance to our Dharma, we're caught in the throngs of drama of, like, oh, this is happening to me because of her, or this is happening because of them, or we just get caught in that resistance to it. And so that blocks us. We inevitably will be oppressed by our karma then because we haven't accepted our Dharma. So I feel that Dharma is what life is bringing your way for a very deep and purposeful reason. Like, it comes up out of the purpose into the attraction sphere. So in order for you to embody a deeper sense of your purpose, life brings your way the perfect people, scenarios, opportunities through your attractor field so that you can become who you came here to become, which is where I feel like it's the destiny piece. Drama just wants what it wants. It's like life is about getting what I want. And so, of course, then you don't want all of the stuff that's coming your way. But when life is about becoming more me, becoming a deeper embodiment of my purpose, everything life brings your way has the opportunity to unlock more of your purpose. So then I
Mhm.
feel like then karma is what once we are surrendered into that flow of Dharma and we accept everything coming our way, then we can do something with it. I feel like karma has a very like doing energy of this is what I've attracted in. I've attracted it in for a reason. Where am I being called to take ownership over a pattern or a loop or a trigger? You know, that the pathway of karma is also called the pathway of triggers. And so, whatever is triggering me through my relationships or through whatever life's brought my way, if I take ownership over that, there is something that I am destined to burn off. There is something I'm destined to alchemize. And then that's where I see it being the 47 because Gene Key 47, transmutation, is the Gene Key of alchemy. And
Mhm.
but it's also the gene key of karma. Like it's karma is spoken of deeply through gene key 47. And so this difference between becoming increasingly downtrodden by life through our karma or increasingly more free and more liberated through our karma.
Yeah, I mean they're inseparable, right?
They are the
Yeah,
same.
I mean, to me, I define karma as mechanical, essentially. Or I think the root or the actual word means like action. So
Mm. Yeah, action, doing
when you
something.
distill it into that, it's like when we act from a place of separation, we
Mm,
create karma, you know? So part of our
mm,
Dharma is to live as like an individuated soul. So when
mm,
we're living in our purpose, we naturally create actions that don't carry any karma. But when we're like spiraling in the shadow or spinning in the shadow, we
mm,
are creating mechanical waves, um,
mm.
so that they reflect back to us in this mirrored universe of ours what we need in order to see our Dharma, to see what
Yeah.
we're here to like put our sole purpose for uh, in higher service. So Dharma to me is like about it's the teaching that I am here for my specific soul
Hmm.
in this incarnation,
Hmm.
which is unique and then also like the same as everyone's, you know, uh,
Hmm.
from a unity lens.
Mm.
So like if you view like kind of like that lens of destiny though, which is like everyone is destined to find this sense of being, you know,
Yeah.
what
And
we
return to a
call
sense of
awakening.
unity.
Yeah. Uh, which is why I find, I mean, you'll hear Richard talk about this, but like the gene keys and especially like your profile as like a form of like white magic, you know,
Mm.
because it's ultimately part of your destiny to come across the gene keys, right? As a catalyst for your own awakening and like into your own sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also um, a powerful purification tool, can be, as far as like unraveling your own karma, so you can come into an integrated state.
Yeah.
The in some ways, like when I think about gene keys as like frequency medicine, they are this. Well, first of all, I mean, they're this giant labyrinth, right?
Mm.
So it's like similar to how like psychedelics, if you or the like plant medicines, you have like this one like big thought, you know, it's like huge catalyst, and the gene keys kind of like mirrors that. but in like a much gentler approach because it has this aspect of time woven into the profile, because you can't unlock everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like its own uh like hourglass built into it on top of your little head, for like how
Mm-hmm.
long it takes for like things to saturate. And you can be like soaked immediately, which I think you and I can probably both relate to. So when you find it, it's like there's a soul recognition
Mm-hmm.
through the avenue of your Dharma that like this is meant for me.
Yeah.
And just different approaches to the
Mm-hmm.
unraveling ultimately. But I mean, it's interesting. I was just listening to today. Have you ever listened to the Hologenesis audio or read
Hologen.
that? Hologenesis.
I'm not thinking of it in this moment in time.
It's basically like an origin myth. It's on the Gene Keys website. Anybody can
Mm.
go find it if you go search on the Gene Keys website, Hologenesis. It's basically the origin, it's an origin story, and it's also like the origins of your hologenetic profile.
Mm.
And it like basically begins at the before the Big Bang. And
Mm.
Richard walks you through like the beginning of time and space and the spiraling of different geometries
Mm.
that uh, create or created or came into this is good. It's tying into our core stability. So it's like these spiraling geometries that began at the beginning of the Big Bang that came into or finally like coalesced into like a constant state, which uh, was this 64-bit matrix or like the octaves is like essentially the template for like our experience of like space and time.
Mm.
And yeah, but just I'm thinking about that. So every time we come back into a sense of core stability, every time we find that steady state within, and at the
Mm.
different levels, we're
Mm.
actually allowing ourselves to shift octaves.
Mm. I was contemplating the Big Bang the other day through the lens of the DT.
You should totally check that out. Yeah,
Well,
I'll
yeah,
send.
and the thing that I was listening to about the Big Bang, it was about quantum entanglement and
Hmm.
how when you if you take an electron and a neutron from one singular atom, no matter how far you separate that electron and neutron in space and time, and so they've even kept one electron on Earth and then taken the neutron to like a space station or taken it out, so that time is actually different, so that they're separated by so much space. And if you reverse this electron, the neutron will reverse no matter where it is, no matter how far away it is. And so like this intricate quantum entanglement of atoms. And they were saying that like in the Big Bang, a theory is that through the Big Bang, all of this quantum entanglement, so that what is making up us, like the other electron or neutron from the original mass, could be somewhere else, and we're having a
Mm.
that mirrored experience. Or it's also it made me think about the our role in collective healing. So as I move through healing in my cells, what my cells are quantumly entangled with, that has an impact on the way that they move as well.
Mm.
Or it also made me think about fractals and magnetism and synchronicity and the attraction sphere. And who knows, what if we do attract in souls that we're quantumly entangled with, and so the way that they become a mirror, it is literally a mirror of electron neutron, like a magnetic charge where we're all
Hmm.
entangled with each other. And like I just I found it so interesting. And they were not talking about it in a sense of inner work or anything. I was listening to just a science podcast by a lady that works at NASA. I was just like, it just took me to that place of the gene keys of,
Hmm.
and I don't need to know, but I think it's fun to imagine and to broaden our minds. And that's really like the IQ that comes after that pathway of karma, allowing ourselves to think more far-sightedly, allowing ourselves to, when we let go of the stories that we're carrying around our
Hmm.
wounding, the stories that we're carrying around our teenage wounds from when we believed ourselves to be unworthy of love, and then what happens in the now, and then we just loop it into that same story. When we start to disentangle from those stories, our mind has so much spaciousness to start thinking of such broader, vaster pieces that welcome us into just contemplating our unity, contemplating what this is all about, you know,
Hmm.
and like that Venus stream being all about water. It's about cleansing. It's about, and like karma, it's about cleaning out. Allow, how deep can we allow the water to come in and clean out all of these spaces so that we can return to the truth. It's already in there. It's not about having to figure out something new. We're cleaning out all of the conditioning. We're cleaning out the wound. That's what you have to do with a wound. You have to clean it out so that we can
Hmm.
return to the original state. And it's just such special fucking work.
For
But it's
sure.
not like, I just love that that's where you were drawn into seven sacred seals and things first. I was way too selfish for any of that when I first found this work, and I think that that's a beautiful thing about the activation sequence, and it's even like Gene Key 10, self-obsession. All inner work journeys begin in self-obsession, right? And the activation sequence, even though in its depths is about our interconnectedness with all things, in its beginnings, it's about a healthy self-obsession of who am I? What's my
Mm.
life about? You know, and I think that's why it's the easier place to draw people into the gene keys. And, I see that as being a big part of my life's calling is I'm here to convince people to do the gene keys. And so I find it easier to
You?
bring, yeah,
I couldn't tell.
I find it easier to bring people in through their self-obsessed ways. I'm like, okay, let's work with this. Let's work with your self-obsession. Let's tell you a bit
Mm.
about yourself. And then the Venus is so different because now it's asking you to think of others. It's asking you to let go of that self-obsessed way of thinking and to place your relationships at the center of your life.
Hmm.
Most people are going to require some activation sequence before they even get to a place where they're even willing to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I had
Or
so many.
people that are drawn to the Venus first are often drawn to it because they're like, I need to fix my relationships so that my life can be better. And so they're like, okay, but
Possible.
start me with the relationships because they're so hard, and I need to fix, and maybe if I fix my relationships, people I'll be more loved. And so I just love it. It's the beginning phases of our inner work often have selfish roots, but they're the perfect roots that grow into selflessness. Like it is our
Mm.
selfishness that brings us back to our unity, and just each phase of the golden path peels back the next layer that allows us to arrive in this place of, oh, I think I actually get what this is all about,
Right.
you know?
No, I think that's spot on. Like we start from a place of wanting to end our own suffering, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or like someone make it stop, please. Can you just turn down the volume? Just
Yeah.
take down the intensity just a little bit.
Yeah.
I yeah, to what I was saying before about the hologenesis is actually pretty apt. I know why it was coming up now is because like it's about the origin of the cosmic wound. which is
Mm,
essentially what the Venus sequence is about, is like walking back to this point. And
mhm,
ever since there's been that rent, that tear in time and space, there has been the wound. And so like
mm,
as the coalescence of matter and the dawning of animate life and the capacity for self-awareness, it's like we carry that same imprint, which is how the suffering eventually becomes transcendent and
mm,
non-personal. You know,
mm.
we don't have to necessarily fit it into our story, but it becomes part of humanity's story.
Yeah.
And yeah, through the quantum, like the gene keys are inherently quantum. I'd say probably like the highest in that frame of like white magic, the highest like use of this like 64 codes and all these different types of correspondences are to become a quantum like neo shaman in your own
Mm,
life, you know, for how
mm,
you integrate with reality. You
mm,
know, you walk around all day, you're just swimming in a whole different archetypal reality,
mm,
which is quite the experience, as we all
mm,
are, but to varying degrees, you know. Um, and as you
mm,
said, like the entanglement, like the mirror, like part of the what I've always noticed with the Venus sequence is like whenever I contemplate it, I end up blessed with being in a partnership. Is like I end up really this is like a developing this has been developing in me for it's like the highest practice. Like when you're going through that, you almost need to like we were talking about this before about like uh looking at our friend or families or like our significant others like profiles, not as a way of like to judge their shadows, but like you kind of get a lay of the land of like what gifts you're gonna need to deal with, like what light you're gonna need to hold, because it's very likely through the mirror that you're gonna be actually going or be like studying more of like what's happening
mm,
um through their patterns, you know,
mm,
if you're doing any kind of like awareness expanding
mhm,
template. So I
mhm,
don't know, I would love to do like a group someday with like
mm,
couples or like people who have like agreed to do it and like you basically just like swap profiles for a
mm.
contemplation.
So juicy. I feel like it really helps us to, and I guess this is my experience every time I've done the Venus sequence, I soften more in my
Sure.
relationship.
Hmm.
And not in a not in a softening of letting things slide or whatever, but a softening in a way where it holds more spaciousness for love to flow between us. Like
Hmm.
an opening and a disentangling from, well, for me, it's Bevan, my husband, a disentangling from Bevan's behavior, words, choices, meaning anything about my worth.
Hmm.
And the more that I do that, the more I soften and the more space is held for a higher frequency to be magnetized out of both of us without him having to do a single thing,
Hmm.
and I love that. And I actually want to ask you this, because on Sunday I did a retreat for the IQ, and as part of that retreat is the pathway of karma, um, and Richard talks about in the pathway of karma, and I think it's a very important part of the Venus sequence about courtesy and about bringing awareness to how we often use our closest relationship as an emotional dumping ground. How we often, I'm facing a wound, I'm facing a trigger, and we very naturally feel like, oh, I need to talk to my partner about that. And
Hmm.
how the Venus sequence, one of my favorite things about the Venus sequence is how it
Hmm.
challenges us to keep it in here a little bit longer.
Hmm.
And then how that is then reflect, because the courtesy is again the gene key 22, which then allows the alchemy of the
Hmm.
47, because
Hmm.
that pressure that builds up from the wound, that when we go, oh, like I'm afraid to be feeling this, or I need somebody else in here, or I need my pain validated, and we bring it to our partner as a conversation, thinking that that's healthy, thinking that that's what you do. You talk to your partner, you let your partner in on everything. But how that the alchemy loses its pressure. And
Right.
through us talking about it, we think that we're working through it. But sometimes that can be the break in the chain that links us straight back into the karma again. So just, I wanted to ask you, because every relationship is different, but what role that plays for you in your relationship, of what you kind of do in solitude, and where it comes to the point where it becomes a conversation in your relationship, and maybe what's been your journey with that? Have you learned how to keep more in here and therefore alchemize more? Or yeah, I just wanted to ask you about that.
It's a great question. I also love how you like I remembered I remembered what I was gonna say is that like the Venus sequence is a radical teaching.
It's so
Like it
radical.
seems pretty harmless, but there's like a lot of very high teachings like
Hmm.
wrapped into it underneath the surface. And I think courtesy is like probably one of those like very sneaky, but like very far out
Yeah.
kind of things, that
Yeah.
allows for like true transmutation to and transformation to like
Mm.
happen in the relational field. And I, yeah, I am prone to bottling things up as it is.
Uh-huh.
So the Venus sequence and the gene keys in general has allowed me to not do that as much. But it's also allowed me to like, I've gotten like really my sifter through what is actually like uh, a projection and what is like a truth that is like I'm being asked to like speak in the moment,
Mm.
which is a very tantric thing. Like the
Yes,
the
that
Venus
is the
sequence
word I
is
would
is
use.
is is Tantra. It's
Yeah.
which is a very inner.
It's
I think that's
emotional
like one of the
tantra.
radical, yeah, it's like one of the radical viewpoints, I guess, or like when I guess like juxtaposed to most other, or I guess maybe like a pop frame of like what Tantra is, it's like a very private thing. A lot of that, like the alchemy happens
Mhm.
inside. So
Mm.
yeah, you were saying like that made me think it's like, oh, like the ring alchemy, then like the 22nd and the ring of divinity, it would be more like yoga.
Mm.
And I still haven't worked exactly through that, but that's essentially what the seven sacred seals are, which are wrapped up very intimately in the 22nd
Mm.
Jinky and the sister transmission, the 55th. So
Mm.
how, I mean, I'm going through a process like that right now
Mm.
where things are coming up and I'm like, I have awareness around them to know that there is a deep projection I'm being asked to like look at within myself.
Mhm.
And also that mm, it's not life or death. I think
Mhm.
that is like the ultimate thing that like courtesy is like the brake pedal in so
Mm.
many ways.
Mm.
It's like if you're like, oh, how would I be courteous in this situation? It slows everything down because
Yeah.
then not everything has to be like fixed or emoted right away, which is where I
Mhm.
think if you find yourself along the path, well, first of all, it's like twofold. At some point, therapy will not be able to help you. because you will be asked to go on a deeper, inner, wilder path. But along something like the Venus sequence, like a therapist or some other modalities, like hand modalities, to help like anchor you, um, can be super helpful and profound, or like recommended, because it allows you to like keep the courtesy in the relationship alive
Mm.
by not just essentially turning the other person into God and then
Yeah.
dumping
Yeah. So
in
true.
in that way,
And I think
which
that
you can. But,
yeah, courtesy, the idea of courtesy was a essential piece for me to form a deeper relationship with my own suffering. Like I noticed how much I would project my suffering out, or I would need Bevan to know, right? Like, and as someone who has been journeying chronic illness for 15 years, like I go through a lot of physical suffering, and pre-Venus sequence, I used to tell Bevan about it all day long. I'd call him at work to tell him that I had migraine. And I would never even question that because that's just the world that I felt I was raised in, that your partner is there to be with you through thick and thin and through all the suffering and that deeper intertwined. But the Venus sequence made me realize that I was doing that because Bevan knowing that I was in pain made me somehow feel like I was more safe to be in the pain. I was
hmm
bringing Bevan in on my pain to have my pain load lightened.
hmm
And
hmm
by doing that, I was missing out on the intimacy with my own pain. I was missing out on truly being with it. I was that that behavior is me fearing my own suffering. And it became so evident to me from the pathway of karma and as I came into the IQ, that's when I really had like my first big epiphany in the Venus sequence where I was like, holy shit.
What's your IQ? What's fear?
17. I've got 17 line one. So it's like the overarching IQ gene key. And Bevan's got 17 in his attraction sphere. So our karma is like 17, baby. Um, and yeah, just I was like, oh, I suddenly saw that. And that was an entry point for the Venus stream to really start moving through me because I
Mm.
stopped letting the water out. The water would find me through my karma and through my suffering. And then I was like, no, I don't want the water. Like, throw the water back over here. Let Bevan carry some of the water, you know? And I started allowing that water to stay. And what that water did was it came through and it cleaned, it's been doing its job. It's been cleaning things out. It's been revealing new things. And it's
hmm
still something. I mean, it's been years since that original realization, and it's still
hmm
something that I have to so actively catch. Like, I catch myself in that moment as I'm about to say something or about to share something, and I'm like, it almost comes out of me, and I like grab it and I bring it back in. I'm like, no, that is preciously mine for the field of transformation.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
hmm
without that, I would never have formed the deep relationship with my suffering that I have, which coming back to what you're saying about Jinky 22, suffering is grace, and how you can't just tell someone suffering is grace. That is a secret reserved for us to find out on our own through
hmm
that process of becoming intimate with our own wounding.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's so many different like domains or instances where like the idea of courtesy comes up now.
Mm.
And once you start to move through, or once I start to move through some like really heavy things that I thought were firm, you know,
Mm,
and outside myself. My
mm,
IQ is my spirit sphere, my IQ is 61. So
mm,
like when I found myself in the shadow of psychosis, it was really like me trying to keep things separate. Like
mm.
that's Courtney's stuff. That's that stuff. That's not, it's not mine, you know.
Yeah.
But seeing that actually it is mine because I was the one holding the projection. That it
Mm,
that it
mm,
wasn't, you know. But it's
mhm,
like they're just it's just a mirror. It's like, oh, and then I get to see myself in all the ways I was that way.
mm,
And courtesy really gets you into the art of timing, I
mhm,
think, which is what like
mhm.
probably like a hidden teaching of the Venus sequence is like learning timing. And when you, I cannot tell you how many times I have had just awful timing on truth sharing, you know,
Mm.
like just because I didn't want to sit with the discomfort of like
Yeah.
holding that in, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
really not taking into account someone else's like, oh, how's Courtney feeling today? Is this
Mm.
really true? Is this really necessary?
Yeah.
Is this even like just total non sequitur? I'd like come in there like
Yeah.
uh completely off topic, you know,
And it's
because I
so,
bought I was just
sorry.
saying because I have the tendency to like bottle things in. So it's like
Hmm.
I could be having my whole very line one like inner experience.
Yeah.
And then when it comes time to like put light on it, like people are like, what? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what was going on in your head, in your being, you know?
It's so profound having those moments in the Venus. Oh, and I have to go in a second, so we'll wrap it
Yeah,
up
yeah.
after this. But it's so profound those moments in the Venus when you capture that moment where the timing wasn't it, but you capture it before maybe you say the thing or do the thing, and you choose instead. Whew, there's something in that for
Mhm.
me. There's something where I'm not feeling worthy enough. There might be a project, like when you have that moment. And one of my favorite things is then when I've like captured that and I have a moment of like, oh, Haley, you just like needed your own love in that moment or whatever it may
Mm,
be. Or I'm like, this isn't, Bevan doesn't need that right now. I then love to see what follows that moment because what
mhm,
often follows that moment i- is love. And
mhm,
I get to see that where I take accountability and responsibility and wherever I don't use my relationship as an emotional dumping ground, that space that would have been full of my wound, when that doesn't go in there, there's suddenly this fresh space in the relationship for something else. And that
mhm,
something else is often playfulness. It's often a very loving moment. That's what, in my experience with the Venus sequence, all of these little moments of courtesy, all of these little moments of me recognizing, oh, I was just not loving myself right now. They 9 times out of 10 open up into these little moments of, because I like had a moment of recognizing my own love in that moment.
right.
It becomes this beautiful moment where sometimes I'll just even look at Bevan and be like, I love you. And he'll just look at me and be like, I love you too. And I get to see that could have been so different.
Yeah,
And
I do know you. Yeah.
they're like those micro moments of transformation that the Venus offers us. That looking from the outside in, we can be afraid because we're like, oh, but if I don't say those things and if I don't share, we're not gonna be as close or we're not gonna da, 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 da. And it's like once you start really living the work, you just see how that was all just our own shadow and its fears. It's like, damn, the level of connection that comes from a moment of self-love.
Mm,
Fucking beautiful, mate.
that's my quant. Wow. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Close
Mm.
calls of close calls of courtesy.
Close
I
calls. I have them every day, mate.
yeah.
Every bloody day.
I was yeah, I know you gotta go. I was just there's like two things I was gonna say. Let me
Mm.
find them. Yeah, I think that's why it's like so important for us is I think one of the most potent things, and this has been I know we could keep having this conversation for hours, but like as guides, like how important it is for us to go through the Venus sequence
Hmm.
and like having that as like base mandatory is like you have to spend time with these tools and like these gene keys, these teachers, you know? Like each gene key has its own karma, each gene key has its own dharma. And like
Hmm.
it takes time. I think that's like probably that will be one of the biggest themes like going forward in like a age of like instant gratification and
Yeah.
instant wisdom,
Yeah.
is like things don't have time to saturate.
I mean, Richard Rudd's
And
purpose is patience.
yeah.
It's
And
like,
I'll say the last thing is like I told you I had that dream, right? You were my
you
dream.
said you had a dream,
Yeah. And
but
now
you
I
didn't tell me
realize
what.
it's like it was very Venus-esque. But I won't go through the whole thing in the dream because I didn't write it down. But it was like a really charged dream. I feel like I
Mm.
was like moving through sh like doing shadow work like in my dreams. But there's a mudra at the end, and it was for like it was this one,
Mm.
which is for ecstasy.
This makes
That's
me
what I
think
was
of
looking
like.
up. Yeah, that's what I was looking up before we got on, and I think that is just like the deepest. Like if you want to extrapolate or like you if you want to mirror that mantra of like suffering is grace on the other side would be like inside of grief there's like actually ecstasy, and that's like what the whole Venus sequence really is a
Mm.
journey into as much as it is love. It's like a gentle
Yeah.
weaving into your own grief of being human and being alive, and it's like really it can be really turbulent, it can be really heavy, but like inside of it, there is ecstasy. And that's like ultimately that's another higher learning
Mm.
hidden, I think, in the Venus sequence. So,
Mm. Mm. I love that we just had a full Venus sequence conversation. It wasn't planned, but we did it. Ah, delicious. Oh.
mm,
Well, over these next 6 months, as we're in the Venus sequence through the Sages retreat, I'm sure that a lot more weaving of that stream and that water will come through our conversations over the coming months. And yeah, and you're gonna have to tell me more about your dream in a voice note.
I can do that. Yeah, yeah.
Hear more about it.
Well,
Thank you
well,
so much, everyone, for joining us. And
mm,
yeah, we could have talked forever on that, but I do have to take Stevie to the vet.
Stevie,
Oh, mate,
yeah,
Stevie,
thank you.
Gene Key 47, life's work. I mean, it's it's the energy of the day. Oh, I'm going to hit the
Unexpected.
end stream button over on YouTube and then
Cool.
we can say goodbye to each other. All right, everyone.
See you
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Thank you. Peace.